All right, welcome back to another episode of Mommas Who Lead, the podcast where we speak to powerhouse women navigating motherhood, mission, and leadership with boldness and grace. I'm your host, Laura Caroffino, and today we are diving deep into something we all wrestle with, and that is attention. And more specifically, where it's going and who's claiming it, and how can we get it back? So if you're a mom, entrepreneur, or both, you know the daily pull from sticky fingers from our laptop to the never-ending pings on your phone. You know how that just keeps you distracted. But today, what if we are reclaiming your attention is actually the first step toward reclaiming your life? And my guest today is the incredible Anna Grace Miller. She's a writer, entrepreneur, mom of two curious girls, and a woman with a powerful message about waking up to what truly matters. So welcome, Anna. I am so excited for you to be here. And I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself to our guests, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. No, I wanted to say real fast, thanks so much for having me here. I said this to you before, but I loved reading up on what you're doing and just the intentional move you've made to helping women and moms while being a mom. So I love that. And I love the mission of what you do. But yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me this morning or this evening.
Yes.
But yeah, so we just kind of the backstory for how this book came together. Or you asked me, what did you ask?
No, yeah. It's okay. Yeah. So I would love to just the listeners tell a little bit about you, your background. And for those of you listening, she is a credible author of The Art of Paying Attention. And if you have not gotten this book, it's a quick read. I'm halfway through this. It is so good. I don't want to put it down, but if you are in this day of age of like literally being distracted all the time, pick this up. Like, you need to read it. But yes, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you, how you came to writing this book, just a little bit about you so they get to know you.
So, yep, I've got two little girls. My husband and we spent a little bit of time living in Africa, which that's a theme that comes up a lot in the book. And so I think that's really shaped a lot of who we are now. My husband is a college professor and I work as a branding strategist. So I started out just doing like marketing in an office, and I started doing it for like nonprofits, small businesses, ministries, and eventually decided to turn it into sort of a boot camp. And that turned into the service I offer your brand here. I work in basically branding audits for brands, and I really have sort of niched that down to working for grassroots ministries, businesses, nonprofits that are kind of coming from really not the bare minimum, but kind of that we're looking at what have you got and how far can we get you, and really creating these resources that I can put into a package one time, and a brand can really take that and just kind of have a booster to move forward and really succeed. And especially in a day and age where your story is so important and telling it can be so powerful. That's really a big heart behind what I do as I'm working remotely and working from home, which that's been the biggest blessing as a mom of two to have that capability and be able to do that from home. I just count that such a gift.
Oh, it is being able to work from home. How old are your kids?
They are 5 and 3 years old.
Oh, they're little guys, little
Yeah.
ones. Do you homeschool them too?
So we're about to jump into our first year. I will homeschool. My 5-year-old will be in kindergarten, and I decided it was like this slow, painful decision. I finally decided, yes, this is what I'm going to do. So this year we're going to try it and see. And I grew up homeschooled, but it was like a really nervous decision to make. Like, should I do this or not? Am I ruining my child forever?
Oh, I've toyed with that idea too. I just don't, I give it up to the people, the women and I mean, and the men too, for everybody who can homeschool. Like it takes a special person to be able to have that patience and attention to detail. And
Yeah.
um, and it's what I hear is really, really good. I have so many friends that do homeschool, and it's a huge blessing to be able to do that. So good for you.
We'll see. I'll have to keep you posted.
Yeah, yeah. I think I could probably do the kindergarten, maybe age, but whenever
Yeah.
I start getting into the harder math, I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's what my thought process was. How bad could it get in this next year? I think I'm not hitting, like trigonometry yet, so I'm gonna take a year and we'll see. But yeah, well, I think it'll be fun at least to have one more year at home together.
Oh, it will. It will be. Now how are the kids whenever like you're doing your work and everything? Do you get them involved or do you have like set time? I know that you talked about schedule and routines and stuff in your book.
Yes.
So how do you work that in?
Yes. So yeah, I had a whole chapter on routine, and
Yeah.
definitely some of that came from being a mom and an entrepreneur and trying to balance that and know where to give my attention. And what I've honed it down to is really trying to wake up early and put in a couple hours of work then, and then limit the rest of it to nap time. And I don't want to sit here and say like that is the successfully what I do, but that's really my goal, is that I wouldn't be sitting there on my laptop with the kids hanging off both arms. I don't want to back myself into a wall. I want the margin there to just be a mom with them. But I know everyone's case is different, and I've definitely had seasons where that is what it felt like, sitting at a laptop and they're both hanging there and they're asking me, my little daughter's like trying to read words off my screen. But I think that just survival looks so different in every season, and adjusting to that is so important. But definitely, my goal would just be wake up early. In fact, I think I read like a research paper. It was like the most successful people wake up at 4 a.m. And so
Yeah.
that would be my goal, is wake up, put in the hours, and then anything extra, limit it to nap time. But then even that, we're starting to fade out of naps. So I think you find something that works for a while and then you have to kind of adjust as you go.
That's kind of like how I've tried to do for the most part. But now that they've gotten older and
Mhm.
so they don't do the nap times anymore.
Yeah.
Once for those listening, if you don't know, I have 5 kids and I have 3 older ones, and then there's a 10-year age gap, and then I have the 2 littles. But the 2 littles, it's hard, but I I have found I do better waking up earlier in the mornings too. And so I try to get the work done either like some before they wake up, before I have to get them, and then when they're at school now. And then the rest time of that, they're going to be somewhere around. It might be a
Mhm.
little bit of chaos. I might have a toddler come in, we just kind of roll with it for the most part. Now, I wanted to ask you, where did this idea for your attention, please, come from?
So the book, it started in Africa. It's funny because I talk to people about this a lot with branding strategy. Is I started this book in Africa and I didn't publish it until 5 years later. And I think that there are a lot of reasons for that, but I tell you now, what it turned into is get your idea out there. Definitely that built that into me. But what happened is that we were living there and doing ministry there. And the coolest thing is that we chose to do that. The time we lived there, we did it self-funded. So we decided we are not going to have churches pay for this. Part of that was born from the realization that missions is kind of entering this new era. We have options to do ministry and do missions without some of the traditional methods. And so knowing that I could sit there, even though it was on bad Wi-Fi that like could go out for days at a time, we had the option to do I had the option to do some of my own business while we lived in Africa, which was just a crazy but really beautiful experience. And we got to, well, the reason I bring that up is that I think that it really gave us the gift of being able to pay attention while we were there in a different way. And I think sometimes the hard thing is if somebody else is paying for your mission trip or your I don't know, it's like it's very understandable and it makes sense, but you owe, as a missionary, you owe an explanation for what you're doing in a different way when you went to churches and raised awareness for the need that you're sitting in Africa to work on or on the mission field. And so we were there helping with an educational project. My husband was helping a seminary for national pastors to move from a modular format into a semester format. And because we chose to really pool from our own funds and save up and make that our goal, I think we got to sit back and sort of just live in the culture and with the friends we made there in a different way. And I think that it really it changes you forever no matter what. And everyone is changed forever by the life they're living. If you're really noticing and tuned in, I think you're changed no matter what, and shaped by the choices you make and the life you're living. But there was a really pivotal moment for me. I was running a blog there, and so I was already writing down my experiences and the stories and the things that were sort of changing us. And we had a moment sitting at a table. We had some friends come over, and it was just like a thing we'd do, is that we'd ask people to come over and ask what their favorite food was, and I'd try to prepare it, and they'd laugh at me because I couldn't cook to save my life in a way that, like, not in the way that celebrated their rich culture, but I tried, and we'd get to sit there at this table and just talk and pour our hearts out. And I remember one day we were sitting with some friends and telling them, like, what are your goals and what do you want to do going out from here? And we were sharing with them, and our friend leaned across the table and they were like, don't come back here. And I will say that if you ever have the opportunity to sit down and write down, like, what are moments in my life that changed me forever, that moment goes in there for me. And I think the reason is just, if you're sitting there and, like, the people you came to serve and work with and help, they look at you and they're like, you're not needed here, don't come back. I think it changes you, and you have a choice to make. We had gone on the belief that we were filling a really specific need. And when we really listened and kind of heard the heart, what we started to hear was, this is a very well-developed church. There are locals here who came as children in the VBS programs, and now they've grown up and they're looking for roles and ways to serve, and staying here could push them out of that. And it was a really reasonable thing, but it changed a trajectory in our lives. And so I think sitting there on that information, we could have done one of two things. We could have said, you know what, we're going to come anyway. But what we chose to do, I think, was take the rest of the time that we were there and start asking different questions than we'd come asking. And so we spent some time talking to a lot of locals and missionary friends, and just praying and thinking through what does this mean going forward. And what we decided at the end of our time, we came back to America, and then the pandemic hit, and so we had sort of this extra added gift of sitting in silence and really, really praying and thinking about it. We decided not to go back, even though we loved what we'd been doing. We loved the friends that we'd made, and we were changed, but there were a lot of reasons. So if our friend was listening to a French translation of this podcast, I'd never want him to be like, oh, I ruined their life. Because that's not, how it was. But I think that God uses moments like that in our lives, and we can dig our heels in those moments when we're hearing something that we don't want to hear, or we're noticing information that doesn't go with the destination we're looking for. Or I think we can be willing to be interrupted. And so anyway, I think we came back to America. I had this book still in draft format, and I just had to sit on it for a couple years. And I think part of it was that we'd had to pivot and we'd had to move away from what I'd expected. And the book started out as like a missionary book, like the culture and the people are changing us. And suddenly it felt like a failed missionary story. And I was like, I can't write this book. It's a failed missionary story. And it just took some years to realize, I think, the really beautiful parts of the lessons of what was happening as God was teaching us in this, you know, I don't know, this capsule. I'm trying to think of the word for it, but just a very a place where we were just listening extra because other things in our lives were limited. It felt very otherworldly in that way to be able to be maybe farther away from friends and family and technology and be really changed forever by the people we were able to work with in the village there. But I think that it helped to have those years. And I think it was good to pause because looking back, what I realized about a lot of the lessons is that they had this common theme. And in the book I wrote of just, we really learned to tune in a different way. And we learned how to be interrupted. And obviously I'm not coming at this as like an expert on this, but it was a lesson that changed us. And so it felt worth writing down. So yeah, that was it's a little bit of the backstory of where it came from and why it took so long and kind of the urgency, like, of, hey, I think we might be missing something here, me, myself included.
It's amazing. And so far, the book is phenomenal. And it's all about timing. You know, God gave you this message to get out, and it is so good. How would you say, or what would you say, any particular scripture that helped you in recentering your focus to get this published? Like, anything help you? Like when you said you put it on hold,
Mm-hmm.
did anything help you or any scripture particularly that you kept going back to and just like, this is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I actually wrote out like a list of verses when I was writing the book of like, what does the Bible say about being awake and being asleep? And even though this is, and if you just search that, you can come up with a lot, but that I also think there can be like a degree of cherry picking then where you want to make something sound like your message. And so, a verse that I really loved during the writing process was the verse of, I'm sorry, cause I'm going to sound like I'm making this up, but I just can't think of the reference, but it's when the Bible talks about a man walking up to a mirror and looking at himself and then walking away, and not changing anything. Do you know what I want to say?
Yes.
I'll have to look up the reference, or I could look it up real quick here, but it's like that reference of, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Where was it?
I want to say
the one
it's
where
in
James is writing. James,
Mhm.
I think. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I found it. Let's see. James 1.
But when I was reading that was like eye-opening, and I was just shocked. I don't know if you found it and can read it, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. James 1:22. Okay. So I've got it. Should I read it right off here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. I thought about that verse a lot because it was just a really kind of a sad picture that James paints for us of this person who goes and looks in a mirror and they see everything and it's right in front of them and they walk away, and it's like that they'd never stood in front of that mirror. It's just they were unaffected by what they saw, and like the parallel he's bringing it over to people look at truth the same way. That should be this honest picture of what needs to change, but we walk away unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I that was a powerful verse to me, I think, as I was researching and looking at, I don't know, laying out the book and where I wanted to land. I think that was such a big thing, probably because it felt like a theme of what we'd seen working in Africa and having to shift our position on something, and then coming back and continuing in our work and business, but really wanting to be affected by something really powerful God had used in our lives. I came back. I don't think I mentioned this. I came back pregnant from Africa. So it was this immediately like being thrown into, okay, I'm back to my business and I'm a mom now, and I don't think we're missionaries, but what's next and what do we do? I think, yeah, that's that verse and a lot of verses like that, if that makes sense, were ways I think God really spoke to me in that time of when you're faced with something. Lessons are really beautiful, I think, when we allow ourselves to be changed by them. And then other people in turn are changed watching us be vulnerable in that way. I think it's powerful that way, that when we are allowed to be changed and allowed to be wrong and allowed to like pivot when we see an opportunity to, I think that other people are changed as we're changed. So yeah, I love that picture James painted.
I know when I read that, it was just so powerful. And, you talked about pivoting as well with that whenever, you were going through these seasons. Obviously, had to make choices and do different things. But can you walk us through a season when you felt like totally, I guess, distracted or out of alignment? What shifted for you to pivot?
So in the book, I talk a lot about being asleep and being awake. And that became a really big study point for me in my writing process. And I think it was really shocking to me how much research I came across on our brain at any given moment. That like there was, I think you're probably past this chapter, but I found a study from Harvard that's talking about how we're really only ever in the present about half the time. That 47% of the time our minds are essentially, they use the term mind wandering, but it was this idea of like sleepwalking. Our brains are somewhere else. They're not here. And I think it was just really shocking to come across a lot of research like that like more than ever here in 2025, we're here, but we're not really here. And I think that the temptation is there anyway, as a mom, our attention is going so many directions. And, I think that I needed to like read all of that research, because I think that for me, a big lull, and I think I would think a lot of new moms would feel this. There was definitely a lull in just the shifting of going from the career world to being like a mom of one. And that's so small. It's such a small change to someone who has multiple children, but I think that that's just a very world rocking thing, or at least it was for me, where I think there was a shift of, okay, now what? And maybe like a little bit of a midlife crisis, not midlife, but you know what I mean? Like a type of existentialism where you have to sit there and you're almost trying to remember, what was I before this? And I think maybe there's a lot of leaps like that when we're really looking closely. Maybe we start to track that when the shifts and the changes in life come, something big changes. It seems like the most natural thing in the world that you have to stop and process it. Like, even if you don't want to, or maybe you realize 10 years down the road, that's what I was doing. I was trying to catch up. My brain was trying to adjust and process what was happening, even if I didn't know that's what I needed at the time. So I think that I look back on several seasons, like even though I've only got 2 kids, but I do think I've had several shifts like that, like in every growth step being like, okay, I'm a wife. What does that mean for me? Okay, now I've got one little girl. Now what? And then, okay, now I'm officially moving over from an office job to completely remote work. And I think that there can be a loneliness there in being a mom and in business. I think we can ostracize ourselves on accident and I don't know, I think that's where a lull comes from, is feeling maybe alone or not having the time to process where you are.
So, like societal pressures on us as women,
Yes.
when I make that change.
Yes,
Um, you know,
absolutely. I was going to ask you because you came from a pretty big pivot. Like okay,
yeah.
attorney, I don't want to say it wrong. Maybe you tell me.
So I was government contractor, worked for the Department of Defense and Intel. I worked
Okay.
with really high profile military and political leaders, several presidents. I've had the, honor to work with, and I left that career for my spouses and became a stay-at-home mom. And it wasn't that I wanted to, or not that I couldn't have worked. It was we just couldn't find any job that was within the driving distance for me to commute, just based on where we lived in his duty station. And then there really was no other jobs. I actually at one point went on 39 different interviews at one time
Wow.
trying to find, and I have recommendations from the highest level of individuals. Secretary of Defense. I have a letter from George Bush. I have letters of recommendations for several directors of agencies. So I have the recommendations. Even with those, I could not get a job. Like, it was because they're like, you're overqualified. You're going to be bored here. I'm like, I just want out of the house. I just need
Mhm.
some me time and help bring in income because my husband's military. And so, at the time, he did not make that much. And so we went from dual income to one income. And it was kind of, it kind of changes you, going from that role being having your own career, but not to devalue being a stay-at-home
Mhm.
mom. That is the most wonderful blessing, we could have, and that ability to do that and be able to be there with your children and see them grow up is wonderful. But there's like some piece you lose a little bit of yourself, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. I don't
Mhm.
know if you felt that way
Mhm.
and you made that transition or not.
Mhm.
Um, but it's hard. And, I forgot where I was going with this, but, um, I think there is something that maybe it's society pressures on women to, but I mean, I love helping women too that have been in this place as well. And I think that's what you do as well, empower women. And
Mhm.
Um, I really love how I can't wait to get to the part where you're talking about pivoting because I've done that so many times. And I still like, trying to figure out life. I think, trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But,
Mhm.
um, as you were, talking about a mom and motherhood, how has motherhood shaped the way that you view attention and presence? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And I do feel a little bit silly, if I'm honest, sitting in front of a mom of five who is doing everything you're doing, and a lot of listeners too. This is I've said this a couple times. I wrote a book on paying attention because I was bad at it. I realized coming home from Africa, a lot of people are asleep and I'm one of them. And if anything, that expands as you've got kids, and then the decision I made to work as well and then work from home. And I think your time becomes so limited. And as your time is becoming more limited, as your attention, the amount of places your attention needs to go to grow. And so in that way, I would think that of all people, moms would value attention more than anyone else, because it's like the principle of scarcity. You've got so little of it. Like I've got 2 hours and I'm fighting for my life here. I'm going to put these 2 hours into whatever that is for a stay-at-home mom trying to work. So I think just as far as what being a mom, how that has shaped me with how I think about attention. Was that your question? I don't want to like miss
Yeah, yeah.
insert. Uh,
Yeah, like what's shaped the way you view attention and presence, like
mhm.
motherhood.
Yeah, I think that it's made me as a person who like naturally I'm so busy and so like without kids, you have to know right now. Um, I was always very much like just very mission, like I'm gonna get to the end. And so I think that it was like it slowed me down, but in a good way. I think that I missed a lot of things. I look back and realize I was missing a lot of things
Mm,
pre-kids and even pre like my time being more limited. I feel if anything I value it so much more and it means so much more to me, little bits of time that I don't I don't think I viewed it that way. I think I had hours and so I had luxury and maybe in that luxury I was kind of sleepy that way. I didn't realize what you can do with a piece of time, but now I know what you can do with 20 minutes and it can be really valuable. I've had conversations with dear friends on the phone where I'm like, I've got 20 minutes. Tell me everything about your life. I want to know. I care about you and this might be all we have and just please tell me everything. And so I think that it's there's been a quietness, like a slowing down, but there's also been, I think, a very high value on when you have a little piece of time to not sleep through it. Don't sleep in on the time that you have, and maybe in a way, I think moms, we need to go easy on ourselves. We're doing so much, and so that message is true. And then two things can be true at one time, though. I think this other true
right.
thing is being able to think through what you have because maybe sometimes we feel hopeless, but the truth is we've got the little bit we've got. We might be able to use it in a even more powerful way than we realize, and we're maybe disregarding it. And maybe that little thing you need to do is just a nap. I will say that maybe you just need to sleep for 20 minutes, but I think that
I need that sometimes.
yeah, I know. But isn't there a quote? It's like sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is go to sleep and eat a meal or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think I've heard that a few times.
Yeah,
Yes,
so true. Yeah,
life changing.
absolutely.
20-minute nap. That's all the mama
Yes,
needs.
yes. And I've told my husband, I'm like, I just need to stare at a wall. I'm so overstimulated. I need my wall to just look at and just my brain hasn't finished processing today. I just need to think. I just need to stare. But I think that just I think it's just made me value time. I know that that sounds so cliche, but I also think that in that way, paying attention is a very quiet revolution. It's maybe it's not a to-do list. It might just be a shift in how you think about time and the day that you have and the conversations you get to have with people. I think there's so much power in it, but the problem with it is it's it's not like download this app and you'll pay attention better. It's like that's a easier thing to maybe swallow and digest.
I need an app that does that. I know he mentioned
Yes.
you in your book too that can like go through your apps
Yes.
and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to download that. But it's like you need another thing to do the thing to keep you focused,
Yes.
awake and
Yeah, or
so
there's so many apps like and I know they're targeting me. It'll be like just because of all the search words I've put into my search engines, but yeah, I'm targeted by those apps that are like do this one thing every day and you're going to make $1 million or I don't that's not what it is, but you know what I mean. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
this app
I
will
mean,
help
because
your
it's
brain
talking.
get smarter. Yeah. Yeah,
It's all
totally.
going to start popping up and on your feeds, you're going to start seeing all these apps to help you manage your time more efficiently.
Yeah.
Um, how do you practically protect your attention as an entrepreneur
Mm.
and a mom? I know that might be a hard one.
No, that's so good. Wait, can I ask you, you're a step ahead of me. Just up front, is there anything you intentionally do with your limited time?
Yeah, so I have very limited time and like I have to get up earlier than my kids do. If I don't, then we're a mess. Like,
Mm,
we're running around late. Like I used to when I had newborns and like a toddler. And so you don't get sleep when you have a newborn. They're waking up
mhm,
to feed. And so you're just, wrecked. But then I had other kids I had to get to school. And
mhm,
so I was like sleeping when I could and like sleeping to the alarm clock, or sometimes I'd sleep past it. That's
mhm,
embarrassing to say. And then like I'm running late, and like in the mornings I'm rushing late trying to I'm stressed, and the kids are feeling that energy.
mhm,
So they're stressed, and it's just not a good way to start the day. And like I started being more intentional and waking up earlier. Like, I read a study as well, like you wake up earlier, and especially like all the individuals that are successful, they're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning. And so I start getting up earlier, and I make sure I'm dressed and ready for the day before I get them ready. So I'm not
mhm,
stressed anymore and running around. And then when they are at school, I have set hours that I do my work, and I'm
mhm,
intentional with those hours because I have very limited time. If I don't have like my list of priorities,
mhm,
then I can get lost and
mhm,
distracted.
mhm,
And especially if I start picking up my phone and I start scrolling, it quickly gets away from me. So having
mhm,
an app to keep me in check would be really good. But being intentional with my time is definitely having a schedule, sticking
mhm.
to it.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely waking up earlier, um, so that I have me time. Like
Yes.
I need me time. I need time to, wake up, meditate, if I'm reading, scripture, like my time to
Yes.
prayer.
Yes.
And if I work out, that is when I'm going to do it, because
Mhm.
it's not going to get done any other
No,
time.
yes, it's so true.
It
Yeah,
has to be done.
only gonna get busier from here.
Yes, yes. So how do you do your schedule? Do you have a really
Yeah. Well, so for the longest time, I really did feel like I was just surviving,
Mhm.
with like the ages of my kids. And it'd be like I just put in early mornings and late nights and burn the candle at both ends. Something that I started doing after a while is that I wrote an opus. I'd never heard of an opus before, but
I haven't either.
yes, yeah,
This
but
is new.
I know. Well, it's so each letter stands for, it's basically like a vision board. If you Google it, but the idea would be that it's kind of like a life plan. It's like being able to pave out what are my short-term goals, my long-term goals, what do I really care about? And it sounds so canned, and I don't want to deliver a canned thing, but I will say this is where it stemmed from is I read that you should write your own obituary and read it every morning. This is like 4 years back. I was like, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. And I started reading my obituary every morning. And it was like the most successful, businessman in the world does this, or it's something like that. And I was like, this is gonna be it. And um, then I heard a different piece of advice that said, write your opus. And what really struck me in the difference between writing an obituary and reading it every morning and writing an opus was that an opus kind of is about how to live while you're still alive. And it was encouraging to me. It was supposed to help you eliminate, like, what am I doing every day that actually doesn't matter?
Mm,
And maybe for some moms, it would be like, I'm a superhero in this area and everything I do matters so much. But for me, it really helped to have that. Like I made a sheet of it that I have it as like a freebie when you enter your email, because it was so significant to me. I wound up writing about it in the book, but so significant that it just kind of like helps you laser focus in on the little bit of time you have. And especially obviously every mom listening would feel that. But I think that it helped me narrow down. It was easier to say no to things. Like I hate the terms like people pleaser and um I don't know, non-people pleaser. I feel like maybe if we were really honest, all of us have this inherent thing of wanting to be a people pleaser in some way, and we battle in our own way to not be that and to learn how to navigate. There are times to really honor people and love them, and there are times to just say no. But I am bad at saying no. I will tell you that. And I think that writing it down in a place where I could just visually see it and read it quickly through in the morning, like almost like having a to-do list, but just reviewing like this is what I care about. This is my passion. These are like small ways that I hope this passion shows up in every day. So for like me, I want what I'm passionate about to be reflected in the way I'm mothering my daughters, in the business I'm running from home as I'm working with other moms and business women. I want that reflected. And I I love that I have a place that I can go to and say, this all goes back to something that I'm really truly passionate about as a child of God and as a woman and as a mom. And I think that writing it down helped me, if anything, say no to more things and just realize, even like on a really practical level, I was reading through it one day and I was like, why do I post about some of the some of the things I post about? There's like a weird, you talked about societal pressure earlier. Let's talk about the societal pressure as a mom to like what you post or don't post, or the way you're judged for what you bothered to post. It's so nuanced. It's really tricky. And I think that it, in my head, it kind of cleared up even that. I was like, no, this is what I care about sharing. And then there's all this stuff over here that really doesn't matter. And maybe along the way, I started to think it did because of someone or something. But I think that it helped me really think through of the limited time I have where that focus is going. And then it even restructured some of the stuff I do with my girls. Sometimes I just get caught in that survival of like, we're just trying to make it through. But I realized instead of doing this because we're just all surviving here together, what if I turned it into an activity where me and my girls are learning together and making a unique memory in a place we wouldn't normally go? And so I think that
I love that.
on a really practical level, I'd say everyone out there should write an opus. Go write something that helps you know what you can be saying no to. So at the very least, you can sort of realize what you're holding every day.
I love that. I am going to go write my opus tomorrow for sure. I'm
Oh,
gonna dive into that. I'm really excited to learn more about that because I had never heard of that before at all. I've done vision boards and stuff like that, but I'm really intrigued by that one. So if you're all listening, and go write your opus too and share it with us. We would love to hear about that, what you
yeah.
end up doing with it. What advice would you give to a woman building a business who feels like they're constantly pulled in 1,000 different directions?
Mm-hmm. I think just even some of the stuff we've touched on, I think don't let the noise that is just inevitably going to be there. Don't don't forget what you hold every day. I really think that oh, you know what? Who was it? You had a guest who talked about victimhood. I think it was Lauren.
Mm.
Anyway, the just this idea of sometimes we get stuck in life feeling like I was really dealt a bad hand. And it's not, and here's the thing is that some people really are, and to a degree I think everyone does hold something that they're working through and a hurt that they have to cope with, or everyone's story is different. But I think just the power of realizing your own story and your own time. I used to say this all the time. I'd say I have 0 to 60 years or 1 to 60 years left on earth. And I think that I really liked the one part of it, that it just was like a reminder that I don't have forever. And sometimes we think sometimes seasons are really hard to bear. And I feel this as a mom and even just in business, that a season, it can be so hard because sometimes it feels like it'll never end, or I don't know, growth is hard. So when you feel growth that you're sitting in, it's like, I don't know, it's really hard. And I think you can forget the gift of what you're living in. And time is precious because it ends. I think that everyone wakes up tomorrow with a much richer gift than they realize. And um, every mom, every businesswoman, every emerging, entrepreneur, I think you have a really rare gift in being the best person in the room who realizes that the time you have. And when you become a person, maybe even just aspire to be that. I'm going to wake up and be the best person in the room tomorrow at paying attention. You start to really notice things like that. Time is very precious, and when you realize that you're holding that, I think it changes what you do about it. It changes. In my case, the trajectory of my life when you take that and you decide, I'm going to do something with this. And so I would just encourage, I think, people going out into the world, don't wait on that thing. Don't be too comfortable in the abundance of the time you think you have. Realize the beauty and the urgency of the life that you're living, and tune into it and use it. So and for some people, they might be listening and just nodding like, yeah, that's what I'm already doing, so thanks. But I think that constant reminder is, it like tires so fast in our day as a mom and everything else. Like for everyone, it's such a human thing to wake up alert and seeing the beauty in the world, and then like 4 hours later, we're like, I'm ready for lunch and my life is the worst. And it's like the most human thing ever, especially when you have a lot of people that you're giving to and pouring into. And so I think that just alone having an antenna up as a new emerging entrepreneur, like having that antenna up makes you listen better. It makes you more curious for the people around you, and it makes you really value what you already have. And I think that's so key when you're just getting into the field, is treating those little things like they're brand new, and putting a lot of value into the time you have. So seems a little generic, but I also feel like even the people who've nailed it before sometimes forget about it. And
It's easy to forget,
yeah.
because you just get caught up in the day, and, living for, if you're going to work for a paycheck. It's not like, I don't know, like I was really, whenever I read about, when you were talking about you have 1 to 60 years, like that was like eye-opening. I'm like, right, like you really do. And you're very limited time. And my youngest of my 3 older kids just graduated last Friday, and it happens so fast. Like it happens like the last, like 1 minute he's 5 and now he's 18 and gonna go off and do his own thing. And I'm thinking back, like the last like few years, I was so busy, but busy for what? Like I was focusing on the wrong things. I feel like I should have been more intentional with my focus on the kids, if that makes sense. But like when I was reading that, it impacted me. And so, it's just being intentional with your attention, and like, we don't have much time. Like we really don't. And every day is a gift to like make the most out of it. And if you're distracted, or as you put, asleep, like it's such a good metaphor. Like we really are asleep.
Do you feel like there are moments, because I can like think of, it's like there are just things, sometimes I think it's just the goodness of God, but things that just are like this like snap wake up moment. I don't know, are there things that in the back of your mind you think of them when you're like thinking about that, like, oh man, that's when I was alert in that moment. I had forgotten, but I woke up.
If I hate to, like something tragic happened and I was distracted or something, and I'm like, I needed to be like, I need to be more intentional. Like I have only the short amount of time and or something's been pointed out to me. If my kids said I wasn't paying attention, like they were calling my name or something, and I had my phone or something, not intending to be distracted, but I
Mhm.
was. And they were saying that I'm like, you know what? There's going to be a time my kids are going to, there's going to be a last time they ask me to go play with
Yeah.
them, outside.
Mhm.
Like right now, I need to take advantage of that time with them. Um, and be more intentional with my time, like when I
Mhm.
work and when I'm with them, that I need to focus on them, you
Mhm.
know?
You I you had referenced this earlier, and I thought in my head I really want to ask her about that. But you had mentioned like societal norms, and
Mhm.
something I'd thought of was just this idea, this we see this kind of like um diverge, this like fork in the road where there are moms who would say, I am all here with my kids and that's what I do. And then there's like, it's in this, we've sort of, with technology and the ability to work from home or work in the office or whatever, this other side of like, I'm going to work a little bit and also be with my kids. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that because I have friends that I love so dearly, but they would take like the total opposite. I do feel kind of having this journey behind you, like, is it possible to be a mom working and I don't know, put your attention into both things well?
Yeah, I mean, I do think you can. It's easy for me personally, like getting engulfed in my work, and for some reason, like my family can go on the back burner, and that I don't like. Like I want them to be focused, like number one, and
Mhm,
the
mhm.
business second.
Yeah.
Um, and it can easily, with today and technology, it's easy to let that slip. And
Mhm,
I know for
mhm,
me personally, if I'm not on a schedule, it can come to that. Like
mhm,
with my
mhm,
kids, my family, it's them, it's their time, it's their attention. Everything else can wait.
mhm,
Um, there's um I used to work in I was after I left the government, I went into network marketing, and network marketing is kind of where I found myself again.
mhm,
And one of the companies I sold nail polish, and I used to have this saying, "There's no such thing as a nail emergency," and so that was like the saying. My
mhm,
kids were like, "There's no nail emergency, mom." So, and
mhm.
put it
That's
away.
so good. That's like what you get on like a bumper sticker on your car, like a poster on your wall.
Right, right. So. you know, um, yeah, it's, we have only a limited time with them. And when you're in it and like in that survival mode, as you said,
Mhm,
like you don't realize that because you're surviving. And
mhm,
then whenever it hits you, it's like, oh my gosh. And when it hits you, sometimes it's too late, and sometimes
mhm,
you have time still. So
mhm.
I'm trying to make the most of those times, those days
Yeah.
that I do have.
I
Um,
feel like so many, I mean, people I respect, like the giants in kind of our industry of business women also navigating momhood. I feel like no one I've ever asked for advice from has had like, here's a roadmap for this. It's like here's mistakes I made and I learned along the way. And I kind of think it's kind of like beautiful, I think, because that's just life. That's not just I think even a mom who would say, I prefer to not work and raise my kids. I think that there is not a perfect way to do that either. It's like you're learning and then you fall and you learn how to get back up and you learn how to say you were wrong, or you learn how to recognize when something did work. But yeah, no, I love how you said that. I think that just like, I don't know, that's it right there, right?
We're all living. We get through it. And I think all of us, we try our hardest and our best. We do our best to be the best we can be
Mm.
for our kids and in our businesses. And I mean, we all want to be successful, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, what would you say is like the biggest lie that women believe about success?
Oh, oh, there's like so many, but I don't want to. I'm just gonna say one. I feel like having extremes, like I try to veer away from this is the biggest thing of all time, but I do think a really big lie that women believe is I'm in this alone.
Mm.
I think that it's maybe even a lie we sell to ourselves. Um, we ostracize ourselves and we're like, I have to fight this battle alone. Nobody will do it for me. No one will stand at my shoulder and link arms with me. Like it's just me. And I think that you get a little bit of that maybe being a mom, and then but a businesswoman as well. I think there is like a fight in you that it feels very lonely. And I think that um I wish we celebrated each other more. I think that just
Oh,
like there's
yes.
so many amazing women out there doing incredible things, and that um I wish that we just intentionally looked to really celebrate each other, because I don't think it's as lonely as we sometimes make it. And I think sometimes, I don't know, sometimes we ostracize ourselves more than we have to be, but I wish women would link arms more. And I do think, just a caveat, I think some women are very good at this. April is actually someone so that's our mutual friend, April, very good at celebrating women and pulling them into things. And I think that inviting each other into our stories, I think we should do that more often, because it would make us realize that a lot of us are fighting for the same things. And it would, even women who would have totally different philosophies on being moms or doing business, I think that standing by each other and being allowed to be part of each other's stories and celebrating that, I think we'd feel less lonely and less like it's just me. I've got to make it through. I've got to survive.
Yes. And that's one thing that I love. And this is one reason why I started this podcast, because I wanted to connect with other
Mhm.
women and share their stories and help, provide a community that where we can come together and celebrate one another. Still working on the community part, but it's a work in
Mhm.
progress. But
Mhm.
sharing your stories and helping,
Yeah,
through different moments in life that we've, maybe need to navigate. And so the stories will help us all through those seasons. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
there was one thing I wanted to ask you. And then I know we could talk. Oh my gosh, I think we could
I
probably talk
know. I
3 or
feel the
4 hours
same
on
way.
this.
I was just
Um,
going to talk. I was like, I've kept her
I
so
know
long.
there's so much. It's so good. Like if you're listening, go get this book. I mean, Anna here is brilliant. And
Oh.
it just comes together and it's just eye-opening. And like I said earlier, it is such an easy read. Um, but I wanted to ask you, where do you feel God most clearly directing your attention in this season now?
Hmm. Okay, this is just a really transparent moment. I had a friend ask me just this morning, actually. She was like, how did you write a book? Because like we're both moms of two kids. Like I where'd that time come from? And if I'm
Right.
totally, what's that?
I said totally, I get it,
Yes.
right?
Well,
Like
I should.
like where is the
What am I-
time? How do you do
Yeah.
this? This is a question I want answered too.
I
So keep going.
So I didn't get enough sleep during this season of life. And my husband asked me, he was like, "Are you going to sleep now that you finished your book?" And I wrote a note in because the whole irony was trying to wrap up a book about like these crazy lessons God had taught me about learning to pay attention. And the irony of trying to write that, and I've got two sweet little girls vying for my attention and not a lot of time. I was like, God is just really breaking me to pieces and teaching me because what in the whole world will humble you like trying to write about that when your time is so limited. I'm like, this is something I'm struggling through and I'm learning, and my season of life is even adjusting as I'm writing it, and I'm trying to figure that out. And I think that um I think that what I'm trying to focus on right now is um is sitting back and kind of like the power of the silent seasons. I think this is like a quieter season I'm heading into right now. I'm still doing my business, my branding business. But there's a lot of things that kind of like as a result of putting a lot of my attention into one thing, I said no to a lot of things, and it has been like a quieter shift for me. And I think that that's something I really do feel um strongly that like to enjoy it right now. Because I know that it's not forever. And I also know that, I mean, I know I just came out of a season where I didn't have that. And so I think having like the patience to just to know when to like move on something and to know when to say this is like a collecting season. Like I get to sit here and process information and ask questions and watch people that are doing incredible things. And I think that knowing the power of both of those sides of life, I think this is a collecting season for me where I'm learning again, and 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 being able to enjoy that instead of trying to rush through it or be like, what's the next thing now? I think I've messed up in this area before, and I've missed things before because I rushed through a season that was kind of about collecting information and just I heard a quote. It was like the people who plan the farthest ahead. That was kind of the effect of it, of like the most successful people are like they're making their plans 10 years ago. But that was never my personality. My personality was like I'm making I'm making my plan and I have to do it immediately right now. And I think I would even have been against a planner. Like I would have probably tuned out if somebody was like, you need to make a plan. Because I would have been like this, I don't know, like this like free flying, like, no, go with the winds and I jump onto the next, bandwagon. And I think that the wisdom that I'm starting to realize as I go up and down in different seasons is just sometimes planning isn't about creating this unbreakable thing that nobody can um, derail. I think that maybe it's taking a time to write something down in pencil and be, I don't know, whimsical and brave enough to write it down for a really far out time and then just start data collecting and be open to that. Be willing to write down the bravest things that you can in a season where you actually can get a piece of paper in front of you, because that is not everyone's time. Some people are yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have to tell you, So I think that that's where I feel really led right now is um writing down what I'm learning and being teachable um and learning from other people and seeing where that goes, but being brave enough also to like take that time, because I have a few extra minutes here and there to write down ideas for the future. I think not losing that ability to dream, but being wise enough to sit and just like listen, be a better listener, and let that influence the plans I'm making for down the road. So
I love that. I have one more question for you.
okay.
What about, you mentioned something about teaching and what's being taught to you right now. How about your daughters? What did they teach you about
Oh,
presence and, something that like books never could?
yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, Yeah, what does life teach you that a book never could? There's so
Yeah,
much.
right, right.
Um, I don't know. Daughters are so fun.
Yeah.
They're both of them are just like so whimsical right now. You know, we have our little I hate to call it a witching hour, but just like in the evening, there's just something that is born in them that doesn't happen any other time of the day where they like the costume box comes out and the music goes on and we're being served tea and we're sitting next to their stuffed animals and it's so fun to see them in on it together because I hadn't had that before having two and yeah I think that there is such a beauty in a child. I think what I'm learning and remembering watching them is that sometimes we have these beautiful lessons that we nail really early on in life and then we lose. Like you start to wear a mask as life goes on. And I think there's something so sweet and straightforward about a child and what they want and what they don't want um and how they enjoy life. And I think that it's not supposed to stay that way for sure. We're supposed to grow up. Like, I mean, that's from right out of the Bible. Like we're supposed to grow and grow in wisdom and but I think that there's something really beautiful there that kids nail early on and then we unlearn it. And there are parts of that I wish we didn't unlearn. And I find myself thinking about that a lot.
Mm.
Watching my kids is just there are things, I mean, I don't want them to stay the way they are. So please don't get me wrong. Like these girls have things
Yeah.
to learn. I'm seeing the worst parts of myself some days reflected in them, but there's just this
That's funny how that
sweetness.
works.
Wait, what'd you say? Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's
It's
like, oh,
yeah, oh, I know where that came from. Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. Yeah, so I guess that's what I'd say is there's something there that I wish we didn't lose. And I think that I think it's you can remember it when you're watching a child. So it's such a gift to be able to watch that and laugh at myself and snap out of these I don't know, you just get in your head as you grow up and you have to be an adult. I think that a child reteaches you that. Um in a different way than anything else could. Like you said, a book. Yeah, a book will never teach you that. You watch it lived out in your in a child. It's just there's nothing like that. It's so beautiful and moving.
It is. Oh my gosh. Wow, this has been such an amazing conversation. And like I said, like we could probably talk for 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, yeah, for
Maybe
sure.
we'll have to do another episode and have you on again and talk about something
Oh,
else and maybe dive in more into the branding piece because I
oh
think that
yeah.
is so needed too nowadays because people get a lot, like we were talking earlier a little bit about that,
Yes.
being trying to figure out what you're posting and if it feels like
Yes.
you or not and worry about what other people think and we can dive in that maybe another episode. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this has been so good. You've given us permission to pause, to notice, and to be present in a culture that's constantly telling us to speed up and do more and takes our attention from things. And I know so many that are listening today are, exhaling a little bit deeper because of you. And for before we go, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
I don't know. Just I don't pay attention out there. Life is so beautiful. I I thought about that a lot during our conversation. Like there's just one shot really to really sit back and enjoy what you've got. So that's something we're all learning for sure.
Absolutely. So, to every mama listening today, your attention matters. It's the gateway to your calling, your creativity, your joy, your peace, and the way you protect it. That's leadership. And a huge thank you to Anna Grace Miller for showing up with wisdom, warmth, and truth. If you want more of her goodness, and I promise you do, go grab her wake up guide for free on her website. It's annagracemiller.com /pay Anna-attention. And make sure to follow her on Instagram at Anna Grace from Africa and photos by Anna Grace Miller. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, tag us on social, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And until next time, keep leading, keep growing, and keep believing in what's possible.